Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Government to review work from home order. Jamaica on track to receive 1.4 million doses of vaccines in the coming weeks. Later in sports, West Indies women's captain shortlisted for ICC July Player of the Month award. I'm Shane Masters. Here are the details. The government is to review the work from home order for the public sector, following reports that some employees are abusing the arrangement. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the revelation at a press conference last evening, where he outlined new measures aimed at limiting the spread of COVID-19. As the government announced tighter measures under the Disaster Risk Management Act on Monday, no changes to the work from home arrangements were made, at least not yet. This measure was instituted by Prime Minister Andrew Holness early on in the pandemic, following a cluster of COVID cases in the workplace. Mr. Holness says a revision is coming.
Certainly in the public sector, we will continue the work from home. We will have to review it. Gotten a lot of complaints, abuses of the system, and the improper application of some of the rules. So it will be reviewed. So maybe not the next time you see me in the press conference, but the following time I'll probably have something to say on how we will rethink the work from home order.
He said fully vaccinated persons should still work from home. Mr. Holness is also encouraging the private sector to facilitate work from home for employees where possible. Responding to a question about private sector entities and the mandating of vaccination for its employees, Mr. Holness said that's not on the books presently.
The government is not at this point thinking about anything to do with any mandates for vaccines. We are in the phase of public education, getting availability and widespread dispersion of the vaccines in the island, and creating incentives for persons to take the vaccine. I think that is the phase that we have to work on and we have to focus on. I have confidence that the Jamaican people, once they buy into it, that they will accept it.
And speaking of vaccination, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the country is still on track to receive 1.4 million doses of vaccines in the coming weeks. Dr. Tufton says already the country is in receipt of 300,000 doses, and by the end of the week, it should get another shipment.
We're anticipating to receive over 470,000 doses in August, another 420,000 doses in September. And again, I say that the 700,000 target by the end of September will mean some 30% of the overall population, which would be a very good development and certainly a pace that would certainly hedge against the threat of the virus. So we're working on that. These will be other brands, not just the AstraZeneca brand, and we will keep the country informed.
In the meantime, the Health Ministry has now activated field hospitals across the island as the country sees a surge in COVID-19 cases. Shamala Pullen has that angle.
At a press conference on Monday, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton said between 50 and 75% of communities have active cases of COVID-19. According to data from the Ministry of Health, the reproductive rate is now 1.3%, which means more persons will get the virus. With the increased COVID-19 cases, bed occupancy has also increased at hospitals.
With respect to general occupancy, 6 hospitals were in the red alert zone, which means that these facilities currently have 84% or greater bed occupancy, while 4 are in the amber alert zone with greater than 74% of their beds currently being occupied. Currently, as it relates to COVID-19 occupancy beds, 8 facilities are at over 84% of its current bed capacity, placing it in the red alert zone.
Dr. Tufton said the Health Ministry has now activated field hospitals across the country.
There are 40 beds at Spanish Town Hospital and 32 each at the Falmouth and St. Joseph's hospitals. 2 other 40-bed facilities are to become available for a total of 716 COVID beds. So that's ultimately what we will put in place. Now, we do have flexibility, but I think we have to appreciate that if we are to convert regular beds into COVID beds, then it means less regular beds are going to be available.
Meanwhile, the objective continues to be vaccinating 65% of the population by the end of March next year. And so the target between now and September is to vaccinate some 700,000 people.
Up to Sunday, August 8th, 2021, some 374,667 doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered. 240,696 first dose, 131,632 second doses, and that's of the AstraZeneca. We did receive, as we had said, a limited supply of Johnson & Johnson, primarily for our athletes, and we have administered some 885 doses, and that's a single dose.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
And 10 new COVID-related deaths were recorded in the last 24 hours. 5 of those deaths were in Hanover, 2 in Kingston and St. Andrew, and 1 each in St. Elizabeth, St. Catherine, and Manchester. Jamaica's death toll now stands at 1,241. Meanwhile, 316 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded out of 748 samples. This pushes the overall case count to 55,456. The country's positivity rate now stands at 35.3%. 302 people have been hospitalized, 33 are critically ill. There are 6,543 active cases on the island. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has broken his silence on a recent incident in St. Ann, which saw the arrest of a man seen in a viral video hurling expletives at him. At a press briefing last evening, Mr. Holness sought to assure citizens he will protect their constitutional rights. Sandy Williams reports.
Moments after the Prime Minister announced tighter COVID restrictions last month, a man who identified himself as Shaquille O'Neal Higgins was apparently upset about how the revised curfew times would affect his plans. He recorded his frustration in an expletive-riddled rant directed at the Prime Minister. Shortly after, the St. Ann police were seen in another viral video ordering Mr. Higgins to get dressed before taking him into custody and demanding he apologize to Mr. Holness. This caused public outrage as many Jamaicans took to social media to blast the police for their actions while raising concerns about freedom of speech. At a press briefing Monday evening, Mr. Holness assured Jamaicans that he will not allow the state to abuse people's constitutional rights.
We are a free country, and you are entitled to express your views about how you feel as a citizen the government is managing your affairs. Of course, you would have to do so within the confines of the law, and we do have laws on our books regarding the use of profanity, and there is a standard of decency. But I wish to reaffirm that every Jamaican, regardless of who you are, what station you are, that you have a right to express your views. And as your Prime Minister, it is my duty to ensure that those rights are protected and reinforced.
It was not the first time an arrest was made after certain comments were directed at the Prime Minister. Last April, Dane Mitchell of Jonestown, St. Andrew, was reportedly taken from under his bed by police after his social media rant about curfew went viral. He too apologized to Mr. Holness for his comments. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security has described the recent stabbing incident of a Jamaican farm worker on another as a tragedy which undermines a decades-old program. Which undermines a decades-old farm work program. Details in this report.
The Jamaican farm worker who was stabbed in the abdomen by another Jamaican in Canada last week remains in critical condition at hospital. It happened at the Coral Beach Farm in Kelowna, British Columbia. Minister of Labour Carl Samuda provided an update on the victim's health.
2 workers got into an altercation, and the end result is that one chased the other and stabbed him quite severely, had to be taken to hospital, and I believe the one that got stabbed is still in the hospital. information that I received is that there were anxious moments as to whether he would survive, but he seems to have recovered in great part, and we are hoping that he will survive and fully recover.
A source at the farm told TVJ News that the alleged perpetrator is still in custody. Our news center reached out to the Kelowna Police Services in Canada. The officer with whom we spoke confirmed the incident, but would only say investigations are ongoing. Mr. Samida says the assault, though serious, is not a reflection of the Jamaicans on the farm work program. He says the overseas employment program has been a major source of income for many Jamaicans and cannot be sabotaged.
It's a very, very serious thing to have occurred, and it compromises the entire program, because this kind of thing gives a bad impression about the workers, and there are many hard-working, honest, and quite productive members of the farm workers community, and this only goes to damage the reputation that we have over years developed as hardworking people.
In the meantime, the minister says more farm workers are expected to leave the island by the end of August for the United States.
But we are in the process of recruiting now a limited amount, because the person who made the request was once on the program, went off the program. That is a farm. Went off the program, but have renewed their interest, and we are working very hard to put together a good team that will go up there and work in the United States.
Javon Keys, TVJ News.
Caribbean countries are monitoring the progress of a weather system that is likely to become a tropical storm later today. The Miami-based National Hurricane Center said tropical storm warnings are in effect for several countries, including Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Dominican Republic. A tropical storm watch is in effect for Saba and St. Eustatius, Haiti, Turks and Caicos Islands, and the southeastern Bahamas. In its latest weather bulletin, the National Hurricane Center said the system is about 160 miles west of the French island of Guadeloupe, with maximum sustained winds of 35 miles per hour. And for the latest in the economy, here's Cody and Barrett with the Business Minute.
In the world of business, Caribbean Cement Company is making a $4.6 billion investment to upgrade its plant at Rockfort in Kingston. This project is expected to increase cement production capacity by 30%, or about 300,000 tons. In a release Monday, the company said the major upgrade, which is scheduled for the second half of next year, is also expected to reduce cement imports and support the national and regional growth in the construction sector. The project is expected to also reduce Carib Cement's carbon footprint. Stationery and office supplies continues to be profitable in an unpredictable economy. It recorded an increase of pre-tax profit by over 170% year-on-year, from $21.8 million to $58.4 million. Revenues also saw a 16.5% increase. Jamaica's net international reserves, NIR, has declined for another month. At the end of July, it was $28 million less than the previous month. The NIR was valued at $3.35 billion.
And now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Judge Matthew Shanlott has been appointed as a judicial officer to conduct the probe into the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse, who was gunned down at his private residence on July 7. The Barbados-based Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum, CARICOF, says though the majority of the Caribbean region experienced above normal rainfall in June, drought conditions are emerging in some parts of the Caribbean, particularly in the Bahamas and parts of the Eastern Caribbean. In news overseas, the Prime Minister of Greece has called the wildfires in the country a disaster of unprecedented proportions. Nearly 600 wildfires have forced thousands to evacuate their homes. And an alleged assault victim of Jeffrey Epstein has filed a lawsuit against Britain's Prince Andrew. Virginia Roberts-Gouffier says she was sexually assaulted by the Duke of York when she was 17 years old. In the lawsuit, Gouffier said the prince knew her age and that she was one of Epstein's sex trafficking victims. During an interview with the BBC in November, Prince Andrew said he and Gouffier had never met. And that's it for your Midday Roundup.
And on another development on the international scene, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has resigned. This comes on the heels of sexual harassment allegations and looming impeachment. His resignation will be effective in 14 days. And we head to a quick break. When we will come back, Jermaine Brown will have your midday sports report.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports, and I am Jermaine Brown. Here's what's serving up at lunchtime. Jamaican West Indies captain Stefani Taylor is among a trio of Caribbean players shortlisted by cricket's world governing body, the ICC, for the July Player of the Month award. The award recognizes the best international performances across multiple formats for male and female cricketers. Taylor is tipped for the award after she contributed with both bat and ball, as the West Indies won both ODI and T20 series against Pakistan in July. In the 4 ODIs against Pakistan, Taylor scored 175 runs at a strike rate of 79.18. She took 3 wickets at an economy rate of 3.72. She was also top of the batters and all-rounders rankings in the ICC Women's ODI rankings earlier in July. Now, Taylor's Windies teammate Hayley Matthews and Pakistani Fatima Sana also figure in the women's shortlist. Antiguan Hayden Walsh Jr. is up against Shakib Al Hassan of Bangladesh and Australian Mitchell Marsh for the male award. Walsh Jr. looks to be the favorite after his phenomenal performances against Australia in the 3 ODIs and a 2020 series comprising of 5 games. An independent ICC voting academy and fans around the world can vote to decide the winners, which will be announced next week. Now, former reggae boy Giles Barnes has retired from professional football. Barnes retires at the age of 33 after struggling to overcome a knee injury, which he sustained in the Indian Super League with Hyderabad last year. Barnes made 19 appearances for the Reggae Boys, scoring 3 goals, and was a member of Jamaica's squad that finished second at the 2015 CONCACAF Gold Cup. The former Fulham and Derby County attacker will now be working on his coaching qualifications at level 1 with the English Football Association. Reggae girl striker Chena Matthews scored her first goal of the season for Racing Louisville FC in their 3-1 victory over Kansas City in the National Women's Soccer League in the USA on Sunday. Matthews, who came on as a substitute in the 69th minute, scored in the 85th to make it 3-1 and recorded Louisville's 4th win, as Louisville recorded their 4th win of the season. This was the first time that the 28-year-old Matthews was scoring since returning to professional football after giving birth to her 2nd child. Matthews, who was a member of the Reggae Girls squad at the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup in France, has scored 8 goals in 10 appearances for Jamaica. And finally, members of Jamaica's rugby league team have expressed displeasure with the news that the World Cup in England has been postponed from 2021 to 2022 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Simon Preston reports.
With the now confirmed withdrawal of Australia and New Zealand from the World Cup last month, organisers of the World Cup have decided to push the tournament to 2022 in the hope of having a 16-team tournament next year. Jamaica will have to be patient ahead of their World Cup debut, but for Vice-Captain Marvin Thompson, the news was difficult to take.
As you know, we've been preparing for this year since 2018, and as players, a lot of resources, a lot of time, effort and planning has gone into getting us ready for this year. But to know that we have to endure yet another year, it takes a lot of mental strength.
Head coach Romeo Monteith feels the tournament still could have been held in November despite the concerns over the pandemic.
I've seen other major global tournaments take place in the UK. We have seen the Euro football competition, we have seen Wimbledon. We see other major sports tours going on as well at the end of the year, including cricket and stuff like that, rugby union as well. So I think that, the English should have been capable of hosting a tournament that would have followed strict biosecurity protocols.
The Reggae Warriors are in Group C of the World Cup alongside New Zealand, Lebanon and Ireland. Simon Preston reporting for TVJ Sports.
And that is where we leave the scrum for midday. And I am Jermaine Brown. Back to you, Shane.
Thanks, Jermaine. And that's the Midday News. I'm Shane Masters. Join us at 7 for Prime Time News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.